All right, hello, Honors 410. So for today's session, I'm going to try to keep this pretty streamlined, in part because when we get into next week, things are going to really kind of ramp up. We'll have our group-led video discussions. And so what I anticipate is going to happen is we're going to have Monday, I'm actually not going to post a video lecture. I'm going to kind of combine the video lecture for Monday and Tuesday and post that on Tuesday with our first two segments of the reading assignments from Rain. With that, I encourage you to keep up with the reading schedule that's kind of posted on the syllabus there, just so you don't kind of get overwhelmed. I know for some of you, reading ahead is an easy thing to do just because you like the reading, or I think this Joe Hill book tends to move pretty quickly. But nonetheless, that's what I have in mind. And for today's, I just want to kind of focus on wrapping up Aloft from the perspective of my video lectures. And then again, next week, we're going to be kind of in this in-between space where we're going to have some group-led discussions focused on Aloft, as well as kind of getting some headway into Rain. And then we'll wrap up the week with the group-led discussions related to Rain itself. Okay, if that's all a little confusing, yeah, I'll put in the notes as well, and hopefully that'll feel clearer as we move forward. But to get into the reading for today in this last segment of Aloft, I wanted to start on page 307. So this is the last set of like four short paragraphs here of chapter 19, so right before the start of chapter 20. So it reads, "Course, we could all just go skydiving in our imaginations," he said lightly, "and save money." Ronnie furrowed his brow. "And be complete pussies, excuse my language. I thought you just said if you imagine something, it's the same as if you lived it." "Jesus, man," Ronnie said, beginning to cry. "I just lost my sister, and you're going to make dick arguments." So I want to read this section in part because I think it just brings up some interesting points about Aubrey's kind of fantasy life, right? And sort of the way in which he kind of envisions stuff in his head versus reality. And I think this is kind of a more crystallized moment where it seems like he actually has kind of some trouble almost differentiating between the two, and it's kind of externalized with him talking with these other people. And so I think there's this temptation sometimes for people to sort of just live in sort of a space of like, well, I kind of can imagine I did that. Why actually engage in this sort of thing. And I think that with that, Aubrey sort of, and the difference between him and Ronnie here in particular, sort of underscores something about his personality type and how it is not jiving with these other people. But that's just kind of our thoughts on that exchange and that kind of dynamic in general. Going ahead here, though, on 308, so this is the start of chapter 20 here. I'm going to read the first two paragraphs of this chapter. When Aubrey awoke almost 11 hours later, he knew something he should have understood months earlier. June had not told him he needed to move on from Harriet because she cared about him. June had told him to move on because she cared about Harriet, and Harriet was too sweet or too lacking in assertiveness, take your pick, to tell Aubrey to get the fuck out of her life. That was what Harriet had been getting at on the day of the reception. What else did you and June discuss? Harriet and June had maybe been only moments from breaking up, and their little goof of a folk act when he hijacked things that night in the Slithy Toves. He had made it all more serious than it had to be, and than they'd ever wanted it. The girls had made room for him in their lives, but only after he'd elbowed his way in and superimposed his own desires over their harmless fun. So I'm curious about what's going on here, and about Harriet sort of not being held back or bothered, but this being more about something that's kind of for Aubrey's own good in some ways. I'm just curious as sort of how we read kind of his interpretation of what June has told him when he's looking back, kind of his interpretation of his role in kind of Harriet and June's lives and what they sort of wanted versus where kind of he's kind of led them in some ways. Carrying on here, though, I'm going to flip a good bit ahead here to page 327. So this is towards the end of chapter 24 here. The second to last paragraph here, Cal. That was the guy's name. It popped into Aubrey's head all at once. Cool Cal, the one and only. How had he forgotten? This moment of remembering, this is the guy he previously referred to as Axe, the jump master, remembering his name. What's kind of happening in this moment? What's kind of the significance of this? Just sort of reactions to this part of the text. And then to back up a little bit, this is in chapter 22. It's on page, let's see, 315 here. So let's see. Okay, and actually, well, so I'm actually not going to read a section from here, but just to kind of talk about what's going on here. We get a look at the thing that this cloud is sort of protecting. And then the part I am going to read is actually on 318 here, the second to last paragraph. So this is towards the end of chapter 22 here. He felt not surprise, but only a kind of wary disappointment. A sentient and empathetic life form made of smoke had come to this world. Who knew how long ago with a single purpose, to conceal and protect a head in a ball, a monstrous silent thing that had maybe not even survived the voyage. And so this moment here, I'm actually, in part, I want to hear kind of student reactions to it and kind of what they think of this revelation on the part of Aubrey. But I wanted to spell out just because I want to make sure we're kind of, not kind of missing it, not failing to connect with this. This has a lot to say about kind of Aubrey himself in this moment. So, this again, the idea is that this cloud thing, whatever it might be, has been protecting something that maybe it had no business protecting anymore. Maybe it's already gone, right? For years and years at this point, and connecting this to Aubrey, that he's kind of held on to this infatuation for Harriet, and is kind of living on in kind of this loneliness and this fear and this anxiety when it's already been long gone, when there's really nothing there for him to be protecting, for him to be holding on to, and kind of the myth of it at this point. And so I think there's at least some degree of kind of metaphor there to kind of tap into about sort of the interaction between Aubrey's life and of this cloud's kind of life, and how we kind of read the intersection between the two. So I'd love to hear reactions to that as well, and kind of what you all may have thought of that. And then as a final note for this piece, I want to go just to the very end of it, with kind of the revelation of who Aubrey decides to call when he actually does make it out alive, when he actually does make it back to Earth. He decides to call his mom. And so this is certainly not a choice that I think a lot of the text necessarily set us up for. I think earlier on, the assumption would be, of course, he would call Harriet first if he were to make it back to land. What this sort of says about the character, about his kind of trajectory, his journey over the course of this novella, I'm just curious about what we sort of make of this choice and what takeaways we kind of stem from that. But okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Again, I know we have a lot of moving pieces, especially going into week 2. So thanks as always for watching, and I'll look forward to our discussion.